Karin Clarke Gallery in downtown Eugene, and we have not done a Facebook Live talk in a long time, but this artist is so popular that we could not fit everyone in the gallery that would want to hear her speak about her amazing pieces. Of course, I'm talking about the amazing Olga Volchkova, and we are celebrating today her new exhibit called Icons of Nature. You may have seen Olga's work at the Jordan Schnitzer Museum in 2015 and 16 for the religion, help me, Nature of Religion exhibit that Jill Hart's put together there. You may have seen her at the Schneider Museum this spring in Ashland, as she was just featured there this spring. In addition, we had an exhibit of hers nearly 4 years ago, Oregon Native Saints, and we are so happy to have her back. And today our plan is that I'm going to stop talking soon, and we're going to be taking a look at some of her brand new pieces that are in this exhibit, and she's going to hopefully be telling us some of the stories and research and point out some of the special details in her pieces. She does tons of research before starting, and it's just, I think they're beautiful. They tell a story all on their own, but it's really special to get to listen to her explain some of the parts that we might not understand, that she can explain to us. So anyway, sorry to ramble on. Olga, welcome. We're going to start with the piece, The Holy Assembly of Borscht, which is fantastic. Welcome, Olga.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, and welcome to Karin Clarke Gallery. We will start with my new painting, which calls The Holy Assembly of Borscht. Here you go. So autumn is a harvest time, and harvest time is usually connected to a lot of parties. People start to gather around harvest. They're all back from vacations, so they all want to have a good time. And my idea of a good time, when you all get together around a beautiful table or around beautiful food, and each one brings one element of the party. Like in this case, each saint brings one vegetable, and it's 12 of them, which makes beautiful, beautiful borscht. Most traditional Ukrainian food. And of course, these vegetables are from all over the world, some from this part of the world, some from Mediterranean part, but it doesn't matter. As long as we all having a good time, loving each other, and making something together, something positive, like this beautiful meal.
That one's just beautiful. I just have to ask, is this the actual recipe?
Well, I have all ingredients written over here, and if you get print, you have my family original recipe on the back, which I personally use, and you can find exact 12 ingredients, like 12 friends, on the back of the print. So that's an idea.
I love it. Well, we have a couple of triptychs in the show. I'd like to move over next to the Three Sisters. This is a fantastic series. What can you tell us about this group?
Three Sisters are the most common way for native people of this part of the world to grow vegetables. Like you can see corn, squash, and a bean. So they called three sisters because all three of them, they help each other. Like bean brings nitrogen to the soil. Corn provides trellis for beans to climb up. And squash has a very spiky stems that chases all kind of creatures like slugs and snails away from all three. So, and also as after you collect harvest, it's much healthier for you to eat all three together. So you won't get disease. For example, if you just eat corn, it's not healthy. You need another elements in your food that squash and beans are providing. And you can see, for example, because they are sisters, so they are actually like giving gifts to each other. Like sister bean has gifts from sister corn, and sister squash has also some gifts from sister bean. So I really like this kind of idea of collaboration. And I also like that it's not a monoculture agriculture, what pretty much European people used to be doing for so many years, which exhausts the land and only provides one harvest of the year. If you actually do a lot of observations and see the way vegetables grow, you don't need to plow the land. You can just use age of the forest and grow much more interesting foods than just one particular crop. So shall we maybe move to the other paintings?
Yes, let's move over to these two that are newer pieces, and I know they're also big favorites of yours. I'd love you to talk about both of these. They're such special pieces, and there's some real personal aspects to them as well, with some of the people that are in them. So please tell us about these beautiful pieces, starting with Saint Basil.
Saint Basil is a part of the series I am developing right now. I call them Plants and Science. It's about plants that influenced scientific discoveries. Like, if you look at the history, where people knew for so many centuries and millenniums that plants have a healing power, and just by observing the way they behaved, they knew that some plants, for example, have a power to kill pain, like basil. And now, because we have modern equipment, we know why. Because basil has this element inside, chemical element called eugenol. And that's a chemical formula of eugenol. But the way this painting was created, it started with just a simple forest walk. Like most of my paintings are starting this way. And I was walking with my friend Naime, and we were taking a lot of photographs. And Naime is from Iran. And I started to make a research, and I realized that origin of basil is Iran. And also, basil has this element called eugenol, which sounds like Eugene a little bit. So we met in Eugene. Naima is from Iran, and basil is from Iran as well. So that was a kind of puzzle that was immediately set together. And because it has pain killing powers, that's why I decided, for example, when you go to your dentist, that's kind of anesthesia they use. So it has eugenol. So it's a local anesthesia. It doesn't put you asleep, but it makes you kind of relax and you don't feel pain anymore. That's why I decided for this saint to lay down, because she's relaxed. And in traditional Orthodox paintings, you actually don't see saints ever laying down unless they're dead, because somehow you always have to stand up, or in the best case to sit down on a chair. But nobody's enjoying themselves. So I decided that this saint should really just enjoy herself and catch these little drops of eugenol that kind of look like a morning dew. So, also another thing about this painting, so this snake, according to old Iranian legend, that it was a snake who brought the seeds of basil to Iran because king saved the snake from a death. So, and as a reward, snake brought those seeds to Iran. And in Iran, basil calls like royal herb, because they use a lot of it, and in medicine as well, and in kitchen. That's my story about Saint Basil.
I love the piece, and it is so interesting to see the reclining figure, and it's so calming and beautiful. Let's move to this other figure that's also in this stunning red. And this is Saint P, and there's so much in this. Who's that little figure peeking in the window?
Saint P, and that little figure is my mom's cat, Busik. He lives in that village, and this window itself is an exact copy of the window of my house in Russia. That's a house where my mother grew up, and a house that was built by my grandfather. And you can see a lot of ornaments. They actually used all these beautiful carvings, I think originally in the old times, to protect house from evil spirits, because inside of that carvings there are a lot of elements kind of coded in. You can see like birds and flowers and hearts. So it's originally it's used as protect house from evil spirits. So the idea of this painting is also dedicated to plants and science series, and it's all about first genetic experiments. Like we all learned in school by experiments by Gregor Mendel that if you cross white and purple peas, first generation would be purple, because purple is a dominant gene, has a dominant gene in this situation. And the second generation, that's where the white one will strike, but only 25%. That's why I was always wondering, my great-grandmother, she had like 15 children, but none of them looked like her. They all looked like her husband. And me and my mom, we look like her. Even my own grandmother, her daughter, doesn't look like her at all. And also I decided to use the image of my great-grandmother because she was a village woman, so she was a farmer. All her life was dedicated to agriculture, like changing seasons, starting starts in the early spring, harvesting, in the autumn, taking care of animals and children in the winter. And I also believe that because women were doing all that part of the household duties, they had much more observations and knowledge already. So they probably knew about all of this process long time before Gregor Mendel discovered whole thing. And we know that he actually spent his vacations as a teenager, as a child, also with his grandmother in a village. So that's why grandmother is kind of main figure here. So she helped with all those discoveries. And I'm kind of explaining in this painting so why like this rabbit is black and chicken is white, why I'm looking like my grandma, and Saint P is smiling from a clouds. That's a smile of a pea upon us. That's pretty much the idea of this painting.
I love it. I love them all. You are amazing. Well, you took a trip recently that resulted in the fabulous sanctuary of Saint Sagebrush. So maybe tell us where you went and some of the qualities and special attributes of this piece.
This piece I call the Sanctuary of Sagebrush. I went to Idaho with my friends just for a few days to see beautiful Sawtooth Mountains. And on the way from Boise to Stanley, I was pretty impressed by this kind of yellow hills covered with patches of sagebrush. And in Stanley, you can walk in some parts through the sagebrush prairies, and it's kind of looks a little bit like it's a dry kind of bushes, but if you stay still and start to listen, there's so much life going on inside. It's like an ocean on top of the mountains that covers and shelters all varieties of life. So many creatures live inside, but also it was used by so many, in so many ways by native people. So they use them in rituals, they use them as a firewood, they use them as medicine. And for example, like first shoes that we have actually here in Eugene at the Natural History Museum, they are made of sagebrush. So first shoes that was discovered, like the 10,000 years old, they're made of sagebrush. And all these little creatures you can see on the paintings, so they all would not survive without sagebrush. And sagebrush sits in the middle of it and has a couple tea made of a sagebrush. So that's main story of this painting.
You didn't mention the bats.
Oh, bats, yes, because we stayed in a kind of a very, very small motel, but that was pretty much my view. I was a river, I could see fish and jumping. Wow. Just jumping in front of me in that river. It was so blue. And bats, it just the moment it started to get dark, there was so many bats. And they were all over, like circling and circling. And sometimes even hitting us a little bit. So it was pretty special to be surrounded by all that beauty.
What is this creature over here?
Oh, that's a sagebrush grouse.
Grouse, that's
And what is interesting about this particular bird, that he has these two bags that he kind of pumps when he gets excited or showing off, or like in a mating period. And it's only one bird in the world that has two bags, because some birds have one bag, but this one has two, and it looks like kind of a Japanese samurai. Yeah. Like protects.
Very fierce.
Yes, very fierce and very unique. It's just idea that sagebrush grouse exist in the world makes me so happy that I want people to notice and be obsessed with that, not with all other things people get obsessed.
Absolutely. Yeah, your work is all about appreciating, the natural world and how we shouldn't take these plants and animals for granted, and how we're all so interconnected. And that's why I love to hear your stories. It's not just like you wanted a grouse in there because, just for fun. There was a reason that this grouse is in this piece. And all the science and the study that you do before starting the piece, I mean, it's just it's fascinating. It's really fascinating to hear about.
It's like you take one element from all this ecosystem, and everything would collapse, because evolution worked for so many millenniums to create all this codependency, this community that help each other.
Let's move to this large piece right behind you, which is spectacular and surrounded in clouds. There's so much going on. I want to hand the microphone right to you. It's just beautiful.
This piece calls Saint Chloroplast, Holy Chlorophyll. I always think about nature as a magician, literally, because we think we are very sophisticated and we go to the space, or we go to the deepest ocean. But so far, we only go to those places to make them worse, so far. But every green leaf on this planet has the ability to eat carbon and produce oxygen. So it's a machine inside of every green creature, green leaf on this earth. It's this mechanism inside that we cannot recreate as human beings. Nobody can recreate it so far. But so we don't need to pay for it. We don't need to think about it. So this machine is always working for our advantage. All we do is cutting constantly trees, especially city of Eugene does it all the time. Whole downtown is completely bald right now. And I personally really against it, and I was doing all kind of actions to save trees. It doesn't help, nobody listens to me, nobody does anything. Because maybe they don't think the way I think. Maybe they just don't know that trees, they are creating shade for us in the summer. The older tree, maybe people also don't know that. The older tree is, the more carbon it eats. So it takes at least 50 years for tree to become this very advanced, powerful machine that cleans air for us. Maybe also people don't know that everyone heard that Amazon rainforest is disappearing. But they don't know that Oregon forest is disappearing 10 times faster than Amazon rainforest. So also, that's why I kind of want to I presented this particular painting with all native plants in Oregon, not all, like a lot of native plants in Oregon, but all, you can see it's all kind of native plants except maybe dandelion, because I particularly love dandelion. All other plants are native here. And so what you can see that this is a mouse. It presents carbon, because a mouse was used for the first experiments. For example, they put in vacuum mouse with a plant and mouse without plant. And mouse without plant would die because of no oxygen. And mouse with a plant inside a vacuum would survive. And they would, oh, how is that possible? Because plant was providing oxygen and eating carbon that mouse was breathing out. Cupcake over here, represents sugar. Because the way this machine works, all it needs is a carbon, sunlight, and water. And it produces oxygen and a sugar. So sugar is used for plants as a food, and oxygen is for us as a side product, which is kind of the most important product in the world. Right. And also, by doing so many traditional icons, it's always, in most of religions, it's always a male figure that represents the most powerful God. And he always has a son that is like second in command. But it's never like a mother and a daughter. So that's why I kind of decided to represent this idea with a mother and a daughter, because it feels to me much more peaceful. Yes. At least, I mean, not of course all women are peaceful or anything like that. But at least I just wanted to fix, and I wanted to fill this gap.
Absolutely.
And you can see a lot of different creatures and shapes of the leaves, and they're just all so fascinating and so beautiful. Okay, I think we can move on to the next one.
Yes, Saint Salustla Spring. And you have to see these in person. I mean, I know there's, Olga has an audience that's, well beyond this area. I do expect people to fly here from all over the world, though, to see this show. I think they would not be disappointed.
Yes.
So get on a plane. You have a month. But this is a piece that has a lot of texture in it, and it's so calming. And it's... Anyway, no one wants to listen to me. This is beautiful. Tell us about this piece.
This piece is a Saint Salustla Spring. One of the pleasures living in Oregon is we have so many different climate zones, and everything is so close. Like, I like to go to the ocean, and it's only 1 hour from Eugene. But on the way to the ocean, there is a place, small little town called Mapleton on the Salustla River, and it has a gorgeous hike. It's about 10 miles from Mapleton, called Sweet Creek. Has a lot of waterfalls, and it's a beautifully crafted trail with a lot of bridges and a lot of kind of a woodwork installed around big rocks and cliffs. So my favorite time in Oregon is the early spring, because everything is just about to wake up. And winter is so short here, so you basically don't barely notice how autumn becomes the spring. And for me, like idea of the spring is basically like a clean, new tablecloth, white, and nature is just starting to put little things on top of the tablecloth. Like inside of it, you can see, for example, skunk cabbage. You can see fawn lilies, trilliums, and all these kind of water drops or little pieces of pollen in the air, and hanging catkins, like willow catkins or birch hazel catkins. Salmon berries are glowing like little red stars. And of course, because it's still, you can see caterpillars and twigs, it's all the promise of the next explosion of life in the summer. That basically, I represented in this painting all creatures I met in that walk when I was walking in the Sweet Creek. So I met the Canadian geese, also like first bumblebees are coming out from the ground, and actually it's always females that come out first. Females, they came out from the ground 3 weeks earlier than males, and they have this kind of amber color on their bellies, because males are always just yellow. So females, they got out earlier so they would have some food, a little bit more food than males. So when males are out, they're like ready, like already big and fat. And yes, and haircut and nails, everything is done. Yeah, that's pretty much all my friends I meet when I go for my walks.
I love it. The last piece we're going to talk about today is an incredible piece. This needs to be like in some museum or major public space. I believe it's the largest piece you've ever made, and it's in 3 panels, and it is a powerhouse and beautiful. Yeah, tell us about this piece, and you told me a little bit, but I want to know more. So.
Well, sometimes I feel so powerless, and I was thinking, and because I know what's going on with the world, and I don't understand, why do you have to be powerful? Why can't you be just good? And I see what we call powerful and rich or whatever, what this kind of people, they do to the world, not only here in the United States, but also in my home country, which is Russia. And as you're all aware what's going on over there, nothing is good is going on over there. But when I go to Russia, even before this stupid war started, I see how much destruction these people do to the way people live in Russia. Because Russia is a huge country, and half population lives outside in kind of villages. And that's how I grew up. That's how my parents grew up, and my grandmother. And it's a beautiful life. It's pretty much connected to all surroundings. Like a forest used to be my backyard. And I don't even remember how I learned about mushrooms, for example. It feels to me like it was so early. I don't even remember anyone teaching me doing that. So it's also natural and so organic that you learn all kind of herbs, all kind of vegetables, all creatures in the forest, and you learn to take just as much as you need. Don't take too much. So you would always leave for the next year. Same with mushrooms and all other creatures. But it seems to be to me like when this kind of destruction comes to the land, or they called it these days, they called it optimization. So instead of, for example, having 10 small schools in countryside, they would have one big one in a bigger town. So all those 10 schools disappear. That means children also disappears because all family would move out from land, so the land would become abandoned. They also prefer to have a huge agricultural holdings or corporations instead of local, organic, good quality food. So this way they destroy land, and they destroyed all that connected around that land. But that's, as I said earlier, I feel like very frustrated that I cannot do much. And I was thinking, but I can paint something about it. I can show that it could be different, that we are watching and we are listening and we are fighting by just being good in this world, by trying to preserve what we have and what we love, and at least keeping that knowledge so it would not disappear. And I'm sure it will be needed very, very soon, when people will change their perspective. They treat this earth and they treat themselves and what they really need, that they should stop being consumers just to take without preserving and without thinking about future generations, that they might also want to enjoy this beautiful nature that disappearing is much faster than we think. So that's my kind of a protest painting.
I feel like there's some hope, with that bird. Is that what that bird represents?
The thing is, I see this kind of bad, powerful people. I believe that they're capturing our souls. But I don't think it's possible to kill our souls. So it still would be shining even if it's in a prison or if it's captured. So that's why he's holding it. He knows it's a powerful thing. Because these people, they have this tunnel vision. It's all just about profit, about money. That's all, nothing else. So they go to the space right now only to pollute. Like, for example, this powerful guy who creates this electric cars, we think it's, for example, it's ecological somehow. It's not. Creating cars and does not relate to ecology whatsoever. So this powerful guy, so he went to the space and he dumped one of those cars into the space. So it would be circling around the earth forever as a space garbage, pretty much. And people loved it. They think it's spectacle. They think it's cool. I don't think it's cool. So that's what I really think.
No, it's such a powerful piece, and I can't thank you enough for allowing my gallery to show your work. I really encourage people to see Olga's work, whether you're familiar with it or not. If you can get down to see the show, it runs through November 26th, though you have just over a month to see the show. It's her work really demands careful inspection. It's so beautifully crafted. Her training is, we didn't talk about her training or her technique, but you can just feel it. Should we? So please come and see the show in person. In fact, we're open today. Today's Friday. We're open from 12 to 5:30, and we're open Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then next Friday is our First Friday Art Walk, and Olga is going to be here again, and we're going to be serving some refreshments, and it's a great chance to come down and meet her and ask her more questions. You know, we only talked about some of her newer pieces. We missed talking about the date palm, which is such a beautiful piece.
It's about bringing. It's also about plants and science. It's about how first water pump was discovered. It's basically in the desert. I'll just say very, very quickly.
Yes, please.
So in a desert, palms, the way people cut leaves around the trunk. So if it starts to raining, water runs around the trunk in a spiral. And somebody was thinking to move that spiral up. So this way, how to explain? That's how Archimedes' screw was invented. Way before Archimedes. It was actually, that's how Gardens of Babylon was possible to create in the middle of the desert. That's what brings water uphill, or that's what brings water to the desert. So that was, that's why it's called Saint Date Palm. And it's based on iconography of, when Jesus gets to Jerusalem on a donkey, and so people of Jerusalem that put like palm leaves. So instead of Jesus, it's palm itself in the middle of a composition, because I think it's more important. So that's what this painting is about. It's always better to have a garden, even if it's in the middle of the desert.
Exactly. I also want to thank Olga's husband, Greg, for being behind the camera today. And he's trying to pan around and show you a few of the other pieces we didn't talk about. But I don't know if we've got everything on the camera. We also have Olga's signed prints available. So please come on down, come see the show. Join us today, tomorrow. Come for First Friday next week. Olga is amazing. She's an amazing, beautiful person doing this important work. I really feel strongly that you're going to be like one of the leading international artists, and you're here in Eugene, Oregon, and we're so fortunate to have you. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See you.